The year is 68 A. Rome. The heart of an empire spanning 3 continents is in turmoil. After 14 years of increasingly erratic and tyrannical rule, the Emperor Nero is dead, driven to suicide by a Senate that had finally turned against him. His reign had ended in conspiracy, revolt, and the burning embers of a capital city he had tried to rebuild in his own image. What followed was a period of unprecedented chaos, a brutal power vacuum known to history as the Year of the 4 Emperors. Legions clashed, senators plotted, and the very fabric of Roman society seemed poised to unravel. The empire teetered on the brink, but from this maelstrom an unlikely savior would emerge. Not a scion of an ancient noble house, not a charismatic general with a famous lineage, but a man from humble origins, a pragmatic soldier whose hands knew the feel of a plow as much as the hilt of a sword. His name was Titus Flavius Vespasianus, Vespasian. This is the story of how a man, born outside the glittering circles of Roman aristocracy, would rise through sheer competence and will to seize control of an empire on the verge of collapse, establishing a dynasty that would bring stability back to Rome for over a quarter of a century. This is the story of the farmer emperor. Early life and military career. Our story begins not in the opulent palaces of Rome, but in the small Sabine town of Rete, a quiet agricultural region northeast of the capital. Born in 09 AD, Vespasian's family, the Flavi, were not prominent patricians, but members of the equestrian order, essentially Rome's prosperous middle class. His grandfather was a centurion, his father a tax collector. This background would instill in young Vespasian a grounded perspective, a practical understanding of economy, and perhaps a healthy skepticism towards the pretensions of the Roman elite. He was known for his rustic humor and blunt speech, a refreshing contrast to the often pretentious senators. Unlike many aspiring politicians, Vespasian's early career was marked by a distinct lack of fanfare. He briefly pursued a senatorial career, but found it tedious. It was in military service that his true talents shone. He served as a military tribune in Thrace, and then as quaestor in Crete and Cyrene, gaining valuable administrative and financial experience. But it was during the invasion of Britain under Emperor Claudius in 43 AD that Vespasian truly made his mark, commanding the Legio II Augusta. His leadership was instrumental in subduing rebellious tribes and conquering new territories for Rome, earning him triumphal ornaments, a high honor for someone of his status. This experience cemented his reputation as a highly competent, reliable, and pragmatic military commander, qualities that would prove invaluable in the turbulent decades to come. He was not a flashy general, but one who got the job done with minimal fuss and maximum efficiency. His career continued to ascend, serving as consul, Rome's highest magistracy, in 51 AD, and later as proconsul of Africa. It was here, during his time in Africa, that his simple tastes and hands-on approach became legendary, earning him respect from the locals and occasionally ridicule from the more aristocratic Roman officials. He was a man of the people, for the people, long before he ever dreamt of wearing the purple. The Jewish War. Despite his successes, the path to supreme power was not direct. Fate, however, placed him at the heart of the empire's most urgent crisis. In 66 AD, a full-scale revolt had erupted in the Roman province of Judea, the First Jewish-Roman War, or the Great Revolt. The rebellion was fueled by religious zeal, political grievance, and a disastrous defeat of the Roman governor of Syria, Cestius Gallus, who lost an entire legionary eagle in the rout. Emperor Nero, recognizing the gravity of the situation and needing a man of proven, non-threatening competence, looked past the aristocracy and appointed Vespasian to command the massive Roman force tasked with crushing the revolt. It was the most important command of his life. Vespasian arrived in 67 AD with a massive army, 3 full legions, including his former Legio II Augusta, reinforced by large auxiliary contingents, totaling approximately 60,000 soldiers. He brought his elder son, Titus, with him, giving him command of a legion, a crucial step in building their joint family prestige. Vespasian's strategy was methodical and ruthless. Unlike Gallus, who had rushed toward Jerusalem, Vespasian adopted a campaign of systematic pacification. He started by isolating and reducing the province from the north, one town and fortress at a time, cutting off rebel strongholds and consolidating Roman control. He understood that patience and logistics would defeat zealotry and internal division. The capture of the fortress of Jotapata in Galilee was a defining moment of the campaign, though one of immense brutality. After a grueling 47-day siege led by Vespasian himself, the fortress fell, resulting in a massacre of its defenders. It was here that he captured a Jewish military commander named Joseph, son of Matthias, who would later become the famous historian Flavius Josephus. In an extraordinary moment that would change the course of Roman history, Josephus, facing execution, made a stunning prophecy. He declared that Vespasian, not Nero, was destined to become the emperor of Rome. Vespasian, ever the pragmatist, was both intrigued and cautious. He kept Josephus alive and close, turning a potential enemy into a valuable propagandist and advisor. By the spring of 68 AD, Vespasian had successfully subdued almost the entirety of Judea, tightening the noose around the rebel heartland of Jerusalem. He intentionally paused his direct assault on the heavily fortified capital, believing correctly that the various Jewish factions trapped inside would weaken themselves through civil war and starvation. His strategy was a masterpiece of calculated inaction. He was positioned perfectly, the uncontested commander of Rome's largest, most successful army, far from the capital's political dangers, with control over the critical grain supply from Egypt, and a messianic prophecy hanging over his head. The year of the 4 emperors. Then, in June of 68 AD, the news arrived that changed everything. Emperor Nero, declared a public enemy by the Senate, had committed suicide. The Julio-Claudian dynasty, which had ruled Rome for a century, was extinguished. The ensuing 18 months became known as the infamous Year of the 4 Emperors. Rome descended into the anarchy that Vespasian had successfully avoided in the provinces. Galba took the throne, then was quickly murdered by the Praetorian Guard, replaced by Otho, who was subsequently defeated by the German legion's choice, Vitellius. The empire was cannibalizing itself. While the other contenders were battling for Rome, Vespasian remained in Judea, an observer with an iron fist. He was the only major general whose army was not tainted by involvement in the Civil War massacres. His cautious reputation served him well. Finally, in the summer of 69 AD, the legions of the East, tired of the chaos and believing in Vespasian's honest leadership and Josephus's compelling prophecy, made their move. On July 1st, 69 AD, the Egyptian legions were the first to proclaim him imperator. The Syrian legions, under the influential governor Gaius Licinius Mucianus, quickly followed suit. The legions in Judea, Vespasian's own men, made it unanimous. The man who had been ridiculed by Nero for falling asleep during a poetry recital was now the fourth contender for the purple. Vespasian had secured the east, but to secure the west, he needed a master plan. He made a shrewd political and logistical move. He traveled to Egypt to control the critical grain supply to Rome, his close ally. Mucianus led the main eastern forces toward Italy to confront Vitellius. The man of action, however, was Primus, a commander of the Pannonian legions who declared for Vespasian and initiated a rapid, aggressive advance into Italy. The final, brutal engagement was the Second Battle of Cremona, where the Flavian forces decisively defeated the Vitellian legions. Rome's fate was sealed in blood, once again shed by Romans. On December 20th, 69 AD, the city of Rome itself became a battleground. Vitellius was captured and brutally executed. The capital was burned, the Sacred Heart of the Republic consumed by the flames of civil strife. When the dust settled, only one man remained. Vespasian, still in Egypt, received the news. The Senate had officially recognized him as emperor. He was the first Roman emperor to come from the equestrian class, an absolute outsider who achieved power through merit, military prowess, and the sheer exhaustion of his rivals. He was 60 years old. His first goal, however, was not glory, but stability. He had to prove that the Flavian Dynasty was not just a passing military coup, but the necessary balm to heal a broken empire. Establishing the Flavian Dynasty. With Rome finally pacified, though still reeling from the civil wars, Vespasian could at last turn his attention to the capital. He arrived in Rome in 70 AD, a moment of immense expectation and trepidation. Unlike previous emperors who often arrived with great pomp, Vespasian's entry was characteristic of his pragmatic nature. His first priority was to establish legal legitimacy and consolidate his power. This was achieved through the Lex de Imperio Vespasiani, a monumental piece of legislation that formally granted him all the traditional powers of an emperor and, critically, retroactively validated his actions during the Civil War. It was a clear statement. His rule was not a mere military coup, but a new, legally sanctioned foundation for the empire. Vespasian immediately set about restoring order and morale. The city was a mess. Parts of the capital burned, temples ruined, and public finances in a state of utter disarray, exacerbated by Nero's extravagances and the Civil War. Vespasian's solution was simple but effective. He cracked down on corruption, dismissed dishonest officials, and crucially began to restore the public treasury. He famously declared, "An emperor's treasury should smell good, no matter how the money is obtained." This wasn't merely about collecting taxes. It was about demonstrating fiscal responsibility and a commitment to public welfare over personal indulgence. He even re-established a sense of discipline within the Praetorian Guard, who had become kingmakers in the recent chaos. A cornerstone of his early reign and a powerful symbol of the new dynasty was the joint triumph celebrated by Vespasian and Titus in 71 AD. This magnificent procession through the streets of Rome commemorated their victory in the Jewish War, a war that had been concluded with the capture of Jerusalem and the destruction of its temple, achieved by Titus. The spoils of war, including sacred artifacts from the temple, were paraded through the city. This triumph served multiple purposes. It showcased Roman military might, celebrated the end of a bloody conflict, and, perhaps most importantly, linked the legitimacy of the new Flavian Dynasty directly to a decisive victory for Rome, contrasting sharply with the chaos and humiliation of Nero's final years. Vespasian understood the power of symbolism and propaganda. He positioned himself not as a divine ruler, but as a plain-spoken, practical Roman, a restorer of traditional values. His humor was legendary. He was known for his blunt jokes and his ability to laugh at himself. This cultivated image of the farmer emperor helped to differentiate him from the aristocratic, often extravagant, Julio-Claudians. He encouraged a return to simpler virtues, a dedication to duty, and a focus on the practicalities of governing an empire. This was a deliberate effort to heal the wounds of civil war, not by forgetting the past, but by building a more stable, grounded future. He was a man who understood the fundamental needs of the people and the state, and he was determined to provide them. Key achievements and policies. With his power secured, Vespasian immediately launched a massive program of public works and construction. This was not merely about grandiosity. It was about symbolism, employment, and erasing the memory of the preceding chaos. He famously ordered the drainage of Nero's enormous man-made lake and began the construction of the greatest amphitheater the world had ever seen, the Flavian Amphitheater, later known as the Colosseum. By building a public arena on the site of Nero's private lake, Vespasian was explicitly giving back to the Roman people the land that a tyrant had selfishly taken. He also oversaw the rebuilding of the sacred temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus on the Capitoline Hill, which had been destroyed during the Civil War. These projects, however, required vast sums of money. The imperial treasury, as we noted, was empty. Vespasian, the former tax collector, was undaunted. He implemented a stringent and at times controversial system of fiscal reform. He revived old taxes, created new ones, and aggressively reclaimed public land that had been unlawfully seized by private citizens under previous regimes. One of the most famous and certainly most mocked was the tax he placed on public urinals, a charge that prompted his son Titus to criticize the money's smell. Vespasian's legendary retort was to hold a coin from the new tax up to Titus's nose and ask if it smelled bad. Pecunia non olet. Money does not stink. This anecdote perfectly captures his mindset. Practical necessity outweighed aristocratic sensibilities. Beyond the capital, Vespasian focused on securing and integrating the frontiers of the empire. He oversaw significant military expansion in Britain, consolidating Roman control over Wales and northern England, and expanding the network of fortifications and roads. This not only secured the borders, but provided valuable military postings for the legions. He also engaged in a massive re-enrollment of the Senate, promoting competent men from the provinces, particularly Spain and Gaul. This was a crucial strategic move. It diluted the power of the old, often rebellious Roman aristocracy and integrated the western provinces more fully into the political life of the empire, securing their loyalty to the new Flavian order. Vespasian was a dedicated patron of education and the arts, promoting cultural recovery as part of his general program of peace. He made a groundbreaking move by becoming the first Roman emperor to offer state salaries to professors of rhetoric and Latin and Greek literature. Quintilian, the famed rhetorician, was one of the beneficiaries. This policy encouraged intellectual life and ensured that the education of Rome's next generation of civil servants was of a high standard. By funding education, he was investing directly in the administrative competence of the Flavian future, another example of his trademark pragmatism. His dedication to duty contrasted sharply with the capriciousness of his Julio-Claudian predecessors. Critically, Vespasian understood that his relationship with the Senate had to be one of respect, even if he held the ultimate power. After the disastrous reigns of emperors who had either ignored or terrorized the Senate, Vespasian sought to treat them with courtesy and deference, rebuilding a functional partnership. He ruled as censor in 73 AD alongside Titus, allowing him to conduct a comprehensive overhaul of the Senate roles and the equestrian order, removing unreliable or corrupt members and injecting new blood from reliable provincial families. This, combined with his honest administration, ensured that he faced no serious conspiracies or threats from the elite during his entire reign. He was a restorer in the truest sense, mending the state's finances, morale, and political machinery. Family and succession. Vespasian's greatest lesson from the chaos of 69 AD was that Rome could not afford another unstable succession. The Julio-Claudian dynasty had failed precisely because it lacked a clear line of hereditary power. The Flavian Dynasty, however, was designed to last. From the moment he took power, Vespasian made it explicitly clear that he would be succeeded by his two sons, Titus and Domitian. This was an astonishing and revolutionary act, effectively ending the pretense of the Republic and solidifying a hereditary monarchy. His sons were not just family. They were part of the imperial structure. Titus was Vespasian's designated co-ruler and heir apparent. After his victory in the Jewish War, Titus returned to Rome and was immediately showered with honors. He shared the censorship and multiple consulships with his father, took on the office of the Praetorian prefect, an unprecedented move for an heir, and was effectively groomed for the purple over a decade. This period of joint rule was critical. It ensured that when Vespasian died, Titus would step into the role seamlessly, without a power vacuum, securing the stability that had been so elusive since Augustus. The younger son, Domitian, presented a different challenge. While Titus was given military command and public roles, Domitian was often kept in the background, given only honors and literary tasks. He was an emperor in waiting, but clearly secondary to his elder brother. This arrangement, while stabilizing for the moment, planted the seeds of future discord. Yet Vespasian's commitment to the dynasty was absolute. His most famous quote, uttered on his deathbed as he felt himself failing, was a final testament to his pragmatic humor and belief in the imperial cult. Vi puto dies fio. Dear me, I think I'm becoming a god. This self-mockery was his final earthy joke, accepting the pomp of deification while simultaneously undermining its seriousness. Death and legacy. Vespasian died peacefully on June 23, 79 AD, at the age of 69, in the same Sabine region where he was born. His death was the first natural death of an emperor in over 40 years, an achievement in itself that underscored the stability he had engineered. His legacy was immediate and profound. Titus succeeded him without a single day of civil strife, the first time in Roman history that a natural son had peacefully followed his natural father onto the throne. The Flavian Dynasty was solidified, proving Vespasian's model of competence, succession, and stability worked. Vespasian left an empire transformed. The treasury, which had been empty, was full. The city, which had been burnt and chaotic, was being rebuilt and revitalized by the immense Colosseum project. The army was loyal, the Senate was respectful, and the provinces were integrated. He had rescued Rome from its own self-destructive elite and instilled a new sense of practical governance. His achievement was not the grand conquest of Caesar, but the disciplined, honest restoration of a shattered state. The years of the Flavian Dynasty that followed are a testament to his simple, powerful leadership. Conclusion. When we look back at the sweep of Roman history, Vespasian stands out as the ultimate pragmatist. He was a plain soldier from a modest family who was called upon by destiny to save Rome from itself. He brought his rustic humor, his financial acumen, and his military discipline to the highest office, reminding the Romans that true leadership was about sweat, solvency, and sanity, not divine blood or artistic pretense. He ended one of the darkest periods in Roman history and ushered in an era of peace, prosperity, and unparalleled building. From the chaos of the year of the 4 emperors, Vespasian created the foundation for nearly a century of relative Roman peace. He was the essential man at the essential time, the ultimate farmer, emperor who harvested stability from the fields of civil war. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the life of Vespasian. If you appreciated this look at Rome's great restorer, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments below. Which lesser-known Roman figure should we explore next?